Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, Ace the Winterview, presented by the YMCA of Greater Toronto Employment and hosted by NextUp Canada. So before we actually start the webinar and I switch the presentation over to our guest speaker, I'm going to go over some house rules. So the first thing to know is the webinar will run for about an hour. Secondly, please ask all your questions at the end of the presentation because we will have a question and answer period. Thirdly, if you have any questions that are specific to your situation, please don't ask them here because we have a lot of people attending and we want to give everybody a fair chance to ask their questions. So if you do have any questions, you can join us in our live chat or you can email us after the webinar has concluded. And then lastly, the webinar will be, the recording will be uploaded 48 hours after it's concluded, and you can revisit it by logging into your account, clicking the videos tab, and then selecting webinar recordings. So for those of you who are new to the platform, this is how to use the features. So you'll see a little white arrow with the orange background here. You click that and it will just hide the right panel on your screen so you can see the presentation better. If you want to join us by phone, you can click this here and you will be given a number to dial. And if you are using any speakers and having technical issues with your sound, just toggle with the drop-down menu here and you will be able to fix any issues that you have. And then lastly, at the end of the presentation, if you want to ask any questions, just click the drop-down menu and you will be able to ask those questions and we will see them. So just a few reminders for our members. Please answer your welcome email. It was sent to you by an information and referral specialist, and it just asks you for a little bit more details about yourself and your background and what kind of information you're looking for or assistance or support before you come to Canada. Secondly, please do fill out your profile and again, just provide us as much details as you can so that your mentor can connect with you better. Thirdly, after we've received your details, we will create a personalized settlement plan with various information and resources for you to look at and just get a better understanding about what life in Canada is all about. So please do take your time to read it. And lastly, if you have any questions about PR or work permit processing times or sponsorship and immigration, please contact IRCC because unfortunately we cannot answer these questions for you. And lastly, we do have a closed group exclusive to youth. And if you're looking to connect with other immigrants like yourself who will be making a journey to Canada soon, please do join us here. And now without further ado, I'm going to switch the presentation to Melissa Turner. She's the Job Skills Counselor at the YMCA Employment Community, and she will be presenting on how to ace the interview.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So as mentioned, my name is Melissa Turner and I am a job skills counselor at the YMCA Employment Center in Durham. And today I'm going to be presenting on interview techniques. The agenda for today will be talking about what the purpose of an interview is, interview preparation. I always say that an interview is very much like a test. So if you have not studied for a test, you won't do as well. Same with an interview. If you don't study or prepare, you're not going to perform as well. We'll also talk about during the interview, how to make a strong exit and moving forward. So the purpose of an interview is for the employer to learn about how your skills and experiences fit the position they're hiring for. But it's not only just for the employer, it's also for you. It's for you to get to know, if your personality will fit with the company culture. It's important for you to also feel like this is a good fit for you and that you will perform well. Okay, it's for you to find out if this job and the company is going to fit your needs. So please keep in mind when going to an interview what you want in a company and how that will fit your skills, qualifications, personality, and experiences. So when you want to prepare for an interview, the most important thing is to research the company. Go on the internet and read about the company. There's usually a About Us tab on a company website, and you'll learn some interesting facts, maybe successes that the company has, anything that you wouldn't know just from knowing the company. For example, we all know Walmart is a general merchandise store. It sells groceries, it sells electronics, it sells clothing. Those are things that you would know just by knowing the company. What you want to do is make sure that you find something that shows the employer that you've gone on to their website and taken the time to do some research and understand their company. You want to prepare questions and responses. So you may think, well, how am I going to prepare questions? I don't know what they're going to ask. You want to try to do, again, some research on the internet. So for example, if you're going for a customer service position, you may want to type into a Google search, customer service interview questions. And then you're able to prepare your responses. So you may not have the exact questions that you prepared, but you may be able to use your responses. So prepared questions based off the job requirements are also important. So if you have a job posting, you may think of questions that are on that posting. You know, if they want you to have excellent computer skills, write down what your computer skills are, how you got them. Okay. You want to dress appropriately. So clean and polished conservative outfit, well groomed and clean. Minimal cologne or perfume, that's an important one because a lot of people will have sensitivities to cologne or perfume or scents in general. So when it says minimal, I would maybe err on the side of caution and just not wear any. You don't want to be in a small room where the person interviewing you is getting an upset stomach or a headache and wanting to end the interview quickly. No gum, candy, or other objects in your mouth that may muffle up your wording. And minimal jewelry. The reason I say minimal jewelry is because sometimes people talk with their hands, and if you have bracelets on, it may create a distraction. If you have a long necklace or a ring and you're nervous and you're fidgeting, you may tend to play with that, and that can be distracting to the interviewer. Another thing that I would suggest that's not on this slide to prepare for an interview is to go to the company before the day of the interview. So let's say your interview is Wednesday at 3 o'clock. On the Monday or the Tuesday or any day before at 3 o'clock, I would go to the company. The reason I say this is because it will give you an idea of what traffic is like at that time. Is there any construction? Are there any detours? If you get lost, you're able to turn yourself around and figure it out without getting nervous that you're going to be late for your interview. Okay? On the day, if you go and you're late or you get lost or something happens, it's going to add to your nerves and make you more stressed out. So if you can find a way to be more prepared in terms of knowing exactly how you're going to get there the day of the interview, it'll be better for you in terms of staying calm. So what to wear to an interview? So for women, you don't necessarily have to wear a dress or a skirt like this picture depicts, but if you are going to, you want to make sure that it is an appropriate length. So at your knees, no higher than your knees for a dress or a skirt. But by all means, you could wear dress pants, a blouse, a blazer, dress shoes. And for gentlemen, dress pants, dress shoes. Don't necessarily have to wear a coat jacket, but a shirt and tie is good. No jeans. And please keep in mind that the kind of the little trick that we say about what to wear to an interview is a step up from what you would actually wear on the job. So some people may say, well, I'm going for a construction job, so I'm just going to wear jeans. Well, no, you're still trying to make an impression. So you are going to still wear your dress pants and maybe a dress shirt tucked in, you know, and looking presentable. You want to also keep in mind that you want to arrive to an interview about 15 minutes before. If you arrive, 20, 30 minutes before, you're too early and you may mess up the schedule because maybe the interview feels, well, I don't want them waiting too long, I better go and get them now, and it just throws everything off. If you arrive 2 minutes early, it doesn't show interest, it doesn't show excitement, and it doesn't give you a chance to acclimatize to the environment. If you arrive 15 minutes early, you're able to sit and go over your notes if you have them. Go to the washroom if you need to and freshen up. Just sit and kind of collect yourself and calm down. It also gives you a chance, if you're in a waiting room or the foyer of a company, to look around. Is there any mission, vision, values on the walls that you can look at and try to memorize to bring into your interview? Is there a receptionist or a secretary that you can chat with if they're not busy, to get to know the culture a little bit, maybe start to build a little bit of a rapport with that person. 15 minutes is a good time. It will allow you, like I said, to ease your nerves and prepare yourself for the interview. So my next slide is a video. I am going to click on it. I hope it works. Let's see.
Have you been to an interview recently, been perfectly qualified for the role, you've answered all the questions correctly, but still been rejected? Well, the answer could lie in your body language. Recent studies suggest that only 7% of your communication are the actual words you say. 38% are certain vocal elements like your intonation, but 55% is your nonverbal. Things like facial expression, your gestures, your posture. So this video is going to look at the messages you've been sending out with your body language and how to tweak those to make sure you're sending out all the right signals at your next interview. So think about your body posture. A very natural thing for people to do is to slouch in the chair or fold their arms. And this looks like you're making yourself smaller, wrapping yourself up. And the signal you're giving off to the interviewer is that you're defensive or nervous. Instead, open up your body. Don't cross your legs or fold your arms, but engage slightly forward from the waist. And this will give the appearance to the interviewer that you're interested. If you're jiggling about a lot in the chair, keep changing your body posture, or you're playing with the button on your shirt or the ring or other objects, you're going to appear anxious and nervous. And certainly the interviewer is going to be less inclined to have confidence in you. So a really good tip is to first slow your breathing down. This will slow your heart rate and make you feel less nervy. Keep your hand gestures steady and only to emphasize a point. Palm upwards signifies that what you're saying is honest and trustworthy. Touching your heart signifies that what you're saying is genuine. Steepling is a sign of confidence. Conversely, clasping your hands is a sign of self-comfort and anxiety. So make sure you avoid these. Mirroring the interviewer is an effective technique, but it needs to be done very subtly. Mirroring hand movements or positive gestures, waiting 10 seconds though before you do it yourself. You can also mirror your speech. So their vocabulary, their jargon, the rate or volume of their speech. People trust those that are similar to themselves. So this makes the interviewer feel at ease, and you're more likely to build rapport with them. This is so important. Interviewees often avoid the gaze of the interviewer, or they look down. By looking at the interviewer's eyes, you're asserting your confidence, your trustworthiness. Instead of staring at the interviewer, alternate your gaze between the left eye, the right eye, the mouth, maybe every 3 seconds, just enough to see the color of the interviewer's eyes. For panel interviews, make sure you look at everybody. but specifically focus your attention on the person who's asking you the question or is speaking at the time. To avoid line signals, the main rule is avoid touching your face. So especially your nose, your mouth, your ears, your sideburns. These are all signs that will suggest to your interviewer that you're being dishonest with the way that you're answering their questions. So the handshake is an obvious one, but so many people get this wrong. It's the unspoken word that initiates conversation in any social or professional get-together. Too firm, and you'll seem too dominant. Too weak, and you'll seem underconfident. Instead, always initiate the handshake, match the interviewer's grip, apply the 1-2 second rule, smile, and repeat their name. By putting these body language tips into practice, you'll be giving off the right impression at your next interview. Now, all you need to worry about is what you're actually going to say.
So yeah, body language is very important. And as he mentioned, eye contact. So oftentimes when an interview is happening, the interviewer will be writing down your questions and oftentimes not generally maintaining eye contact with you, but it is important for you to maintain that eye contact as best as you can. So whenever the interviewer does look up, you are looking at them. Again, as the video stated, that sometimes it is difficult to maintain eye contact, eye-to-eye contact. So, you know, moving from eye to eye, nose, chin, mouth, but giving the appearance that you are maintaining eye contact. So during the interview, you want to make sure that you turn your cell phone off. If you can, I would leave it in the car. Sometimes people feel like if they put it on or if they turn the sound off, that'll be fine. But what if you forgot that you have an alarm on your phone for some reason, or somebody calls continually or texts and you keep hearing a vibrating noise? Like this slide says, you can turn it off, but I would suggest leaving it at home if you can. Arrive 15 minutes early, like we spoke about. Be polite to everyone. So as I mentioned, if you have the chance to talk to the receptionist or the person who greeted you at the front desk, it's important. It's important to be polite to everyone because you don't know who anybody is when you are going into a company. Maybe the receptionist has gone for lunch and the president of the company is working out front for a little while to relieve her while she has her lunch or her break. So make sure that you are being polite and personable to everyone that you meet. Make conversation and show interest in the company. Your attitude matters. You could have all the experience, skills, and qualifications and education for the job, but if your attitude is not good and it doesn't meet the, or doesn't work well, mesh well with the existing team, chances are you're not going to be hired. It's not all just about what you've done in the past, your experience or your qualifications. It's very much your attitude and how you present yourself and how you get along with others. So during the interview, this is everybody's biggest fear, is the interview in itself. Answering questions that you have no idea what the questions are going to be and having to answer them off the cuff, meaning that you have to answer them right away. So pay attention to the person interviewing you. Maintaining eye contact, again, like we spoke about. Ask for clarification if you need it. Silence is okay. You don't have to answer that question right away. If you don't understand it, ask them to rephrase it. Ask them to repeat it. A little trick that we also tell a lot of our clients is take a bottle of water into the interview. If you feel like you need a second to think about your answer, take a sip of water. That'll give you a few seconds to try and get your thoughts together. You're going to get questions that are behavioral-based interview questions and situational questions. So behavioral-based are, how did you act in a past situation? So for example, tell me about a time you dealt with a customer who was upset with the service. And you'll go back in your thoughts and try to come up with a situation like that. A situational question is a question that you may not have dealt with, but how would you deal with it? So they give you a situation. It's 9 o'clock, the store is about to close in a half an hour, and your department is very messy and you still have to put up sale signs. How do you prioritize this? So again, it may not be a situation that you've dealt with, but it is they want to know, excuse me, how you would deal with it. And you'll see in brackets the acronym STAR. So the way you want to answer your questions are talk about the situation, the task, the action you took, and the result that came from it. You want to also know your rights. There are some questions employers are not allowed to ask in an interview, and we will get to some of those questions. So behavioral-based question. What is a behavioral-based interview question? A behavioral-based interview question focuses on your behavior in the past. The employer looks at how your past behavior will predict how you will behave in the future. So for example, this is a behavioral-based question and how the person who is being interviewed answered it using the STAR acronym. So the behavioral-based question is, tell me about a time when you went above and beyond what was expected of you. This person volunteered as a tutor. This was her answer. I volunteered as a tutor and kids were unmotivated and getting lower marks. The goal was to assist in helping raise their grades and motivate them to learn. This person used their own initiative and funds to implement a rewards program where students received certificates whenever they achieved a certain goal. And the result was that the increased student grades and motivation. The tutoring organization implemented the rewards program. So again, using the STAR program, the STAR acronym, the situation, task, action, and result really gives you or gives the employer a well thought out answer. A lot of people, when they get asked, tell me about a time you went above and beyond what was expected of you, a very common answer is, I will work through my lunch if my job isn't done. Well, that's not going above and beyond. If your job's not done, you need to get your job done. So this person really thought about a great answer and again, used that acronym to fully detail how this person went above and beyond. A situational question. So what is a situational interview question? A situational interview question focuses on how you will act in the future. The interviewer will ask you how you would act in a certain situation and require you to assess the situation to the best outcome. Okay, so some examples of a situational question may be, you are finding that a coworker is being rude and disrespectful to you and other staff members. What do you do? You witnessed a coworker who is a good friend stealing. What do you do? Your supervisor who is unhappy with the delays in completing a project approaches you. While you agree that the project is taking longer than expected, you have a heavy workload and some demanding family circumstances. How would you handle this situation? So again, this gives the interviewer an idea and a look into how you're going to deal with certain situations that arise at work. Okay. Other types of interview questions are general interview questions, asking about your traits, your abilities, your skills, your experiences. A case question provides you with a specific problem and asks you to solve it. Qualifications, questions about qualifications, questions purely focused on your qualifications. And company-focused questions, questions that they are going to ask determine your interest and knowledge of the specific company. So again, that's where the research of the company is really going to come in handy, because those questions like, why do you want to work here? What do you know about the company? Why should we hire you? You can put in some of your findings in all of those answers. So the next slide is talking about common interview questions and how we should answer them. So tell me about yourself is a big one that's usually asked, and they might reword it to say, tell me something about yourself that's not in your resume. Why do you want to work for us? What do you know about the company? Why should we hire you? What are your salary expectations? And what are your weaknesses? Okay. Sorry, I'm going to go back up a little bit because I do want to talk about the salary expectations. So you want to go in with a range, and again, it's going to take some research. So if you are applying to a position for a project manager, you don't want to go in and say you want to make $55,000. You want to have a range. So do some research. What are salary expectations what is the salary range for a project manager in Canada, in Ontario, wherever you may be living. And then that way you can go in, and if you get asked that question, you'd say, my salary expectations are 50 to 60,000 per year. Okay, tell me about yourself. This is a question where you want to tell them something that's not on your resume, but that still relates to the job. So for example, maybe you are again applying as a project manager, and a quality that you have outside of work is, you know, trying to figure things out. Maybe at home, if something breaks down, you are doing research and wanting to fix it yourself and looking into the best ways to do things. You could talk about that. You don't want to say something like, you know, I'm married, I have 4 kids and 3 cats. That's not what they're wanting to know. They want to know something about yourself that could be beneficial, or a skill that would work well in the job. What are your weaknesses? So your weakness you want to turn into a positive, or you want to acknowledge that you have that weakness and what you're doing to overcome it. So for example, if I was to get asked that question, my weakness would be I tend to be very social with my coworkers and my team. Some management may feel like I'm not getting work done because I am very social, but I do get my work completed, and it gives me an idea it gives me a way to get to know my coworkers. And that way, if I'm having trouble at work, I know I can go to Joe or Bob for computer help, because you know they've mentioned in conversations that they're really great in computers. So I get to know my coworkers' skills and their strengths. So there, I'm taking that weakness and I've turned it into a positive by explaining how it will benefit the company. So again, we have another video, and this is about how to answer the question of tell me about yourself.
This lesson covers a dreaded tell me about yourself question. You hate this question, all of my clients hate this question, but it's the question that starts off 99% of job interviews. I highly recommend spending some time on this question because it's going to make a world of difference to your interview performance and your results. Let's get started. Why does every interviewer ask this question? Along with variations like, walk me through your background, tell me more about you. It sounds like a harmless way to start a job interview. It's very open-ended, not particularly difficult. Everybody should know a little something about themselves that they can talk about, right? From the interviewer's perspective, it's an easy way to get the conversation going. They just want to get you talking and dive into the relevant information. For the candidate, the dread comes from the fact that the question is so open-ended. You could answer in so many different ways, and people aren't quite sure what the best way is. What does this person want to know about me? They stumble, they falter, they talk too much about ancient history, and that's a terrible way to start an interview, by fumbling around and sounding confused, or worse, boring your interviewer. Instead, I want you to embrace this question, because answering this question well is one of the most effective things you can do in the entire interview. It allows you to set the tone. It gives you some power and autonomy in this interview situation, where you may otherwise feel nervous and at the mercy of your interviewer. By starting strong, you make a great first impression and shape the dialogue that comes next. Take the time to prepare how you want to tell your story, and ensure you make a first impression that leads to a job offer. Here's how you should craft your tell me about yourself response. Think about it as an elevator pitch, a focused overview that's concise enough to deliver during an elevator ride. Your elevator pitch as a job candidate should include your top selling points for the position. Your top selling points are going to be a little bit different from job to job. You want to give a little bit of your personality and your interest in the opportunity along with your selling points. You want to sound natural and spontaneous while also covering the points that you want to communicate to make the best possible impression. I'm going to teach you to outline a standard answer that can also be customized for different opportunities. I recommend a bullet point approach, not a scripted approach. Scripted answers tend to sound stiff and artificial. Interviewers don't feel like they're getting to know the real you. Instead, I suggest that you outline the bullet points that you want to cover and leave room for spontaneity in terms of exactly how you deliver the points each time. Then, with a little practice, you'll find that your answers will naturally evolve as you get comfortable with what you want to say. Once you know your key speaking points, you'll have room to be flexible and deliver differently in every single interview. It's not unlike how a celebrity prepares with a publicist before hitting the talk show circuit. They want to sound genuine and likable, so they don't script their remarks, but they do have an idea of the topics they want to cover, promoting the new movie, telling a funny story about their coworker. You know how it goes. So let's get started with outlining your elevator pitch. We've got a great 3-step formula for you. Step 1, who you are. The first key component is a confident, compelling statement of who you are professionally. The most common mistake I see is candidates starting this answer by going back to the beginning of their resume and walking through their experience chronologically and often in way too much detail. This approach is weak because it leads with out-of-date and irrelevant information, instead of leading with what's most impressive about you right now. For most candidates, this includes a reference to their current position, as well as an overview of the breadth and depth of their related experience. Let's take a look at a couple of examples to give you a sense of what I'm talking about here. So here's our first candidate. Who are you? Well, I'm a recent Columbia MBA graduate with a strong background in the pharmaceutical industry. This puts the emphasis on that shiny new MBA and the candidate's industry experience. Here's another approach from a different candidate. I'm an experienced HR executive who has managed all aspects of the HR function, from recruiting to training to benefits. This is a nice big picture, high-level introduction for someone who has a diverse skill set within the HR function. It concisely summarizes a diverse background. Now let's look at a not so good example. Well, I grew up in Cincinnati. As a child, I originally wanted to be a fireman, then later became quite interested in dinosaurs. I excelled in the sciences from early on, placing first in my 4th grade science fair. You know, funny story about that. Okay, way TMI. Sadly, the interviewer does not really care. And I realize this is an exaggerated example, but trust me, I've heard a lot of people go the TMI route. The idea here is to start strong and grab their attention before getting into the details. Tell them how you want them to see you. Step 2, why you're qualified. Step 2 is kind of like the meat in the sandwich of your tell me about yourself answer. The idea here is to plan in advance which details to share that are most likely to knock the socks off of this interviewer. Remember, your interviewer doesn't have endless amounts of time. Focus on 2 to 4, maybe 5 points that you'd like to make. The goal is to keep it under 2 minutes total. So think about it. What are those 2 to 4 points? There will be more time for detail later, so focus on the biggest selling points, the stuff that you think, if you were the interviewer, would make you perk up your ears and say, this is interesting. This could be a classic reverse chronological overview of your last few positions, or it could be a list of key accomplishments tailored to the job requirements. So let's look at an example here of how you might present that middle piece of the answer. I spent the last 6 years developing my skills as a customer service manager for Mega Company Inc., where I've won several performance awards and I've been promoted twice. I love managing teams and solving customer problems. This is a very concise example, and yours can certainly have a bit more detail. Just keep in mind that the overall answer should be no longer than 2 minutes. What's good about this answer? Well, the emphasis is on relevant experience, and not just that, but proof of performance. It's not a summary of job duties. A lot of people make that mistake, both on the resume and in the interview. When asked about what you did somewhere, you're not just going to rattle off the duties that any human would have done in the position. You're going to focus on what you did that was above and beyond. Accomplishments, competencies, all of it tailored to what's relevant for the job description. Step 3, why you're here. This is your chance to express enthusiasm for the position in 1, maybe 2 sentences. Keep it short and sweet here. Here's an example of one way to do this. Although I love my current role, I feel I'm now ready for a more challenging assignment, and this position really excites me. This is very general. You could use it for a lot of different positions. If you can make it a bit more specific for the job, even better. But something along these lines will work well. You'll have time to get into more detail later, to show that you've researched the company, to show why you're a great fit for the role. The goal in this moment is to wrap up your pitch in a concise, confident way and show your enthusiasm. Once you've got bullet points for each of the 3 steps, it's time to put them all together into a polished, powerful elevator pitch. The key is to practice a bit and find your rhythm, find your flow. You can practice a time or 2 with your notes handy. Then, once you've internalized the general outline, it's going to feel more natural. Your personality is going to come through. To give you an idea of how it can all come together, I want to share an example answer. Here's a candidate with their version of the answer to tell me about yourself.
I have more than 5 years experience as a technical project manager at top Wall Street companies. Most recently, I helped develop an award-winning new trading platform. I'm a person who thrives in a fast-paced environment. So right now, I'm looking for an opportunity to apply my technology expertise along with my creative problem-solving skills at an innovative software company.
Your version will be even stronger, a bit more detailed, tailored for the particular type of opportunity. Now that you know what you need to do to ace this answer, it's time to outline your own bullet points for each of the 3 parts and start practicing. Big Interview has more sample answers and a fantastic practice tool to help you make the best possible first impression with Tell Me About Yourself.
So again, tell me about yourself and how the video was speaking was to prepare. So this is a question, or sorry, an answer that you can prepare ahead of time and tweak here and there depending on the job that you're applying for. Okay, so interview types. So there are a lot of different types of interviews. So there's your standard one-on-one interview. This is where there's one interviewer and one interviewee, and you're having a conversation back and forth. There's screening. These are used to weed out applicants who are not a good fit. So oftentimes you may have to fill out an application, and it may be an online application, and it could be very long and time consuming. If you don't sit down and complete the 45-minute application that this company wants, that's going to show them that you're not really interested in that company. But the person who does sit down and fills out that whole application and answers all the questions and takes the time, the company knows that they are willing to work there. You may have a phone interview. So usually this is used as a screening technique. These do not allow for body language to be seen, which can make it more difficult. But if you are having a phone interview, you want to make sure that you're in a quiet space, that there's no background noise such as TV, other people, children, traffic, that sort of thing. You want to be able to hear the person and be able to answer the question. A video chat. So this is becoming more popular. These are often used to screen using a webcam on programs like Skype. Right now, we're often using Zoom in the current global situation that we're facing right now. So again, it's very similar to the phone. You want to make sure that you have no background noise, that you're dressed for an interview, and that you look presentable, that you're not laying in bed taking the call, but you're sitting at a kitchen table or on a couch or in an office that you have in your house. A panel interview consists of multiple interviewers that interview one person. The key is to give your attention to each interviewer when they are asking the questions. So for example, there could be 3 interviewers and 1 interviewee, and they just take turns asking questions. And then lastly, there's a group interview. So this is when there's usually 1 interviewer, but many different candidates applying for the job in the same interview. So as we spoke, there are questions that are illegal for employers to ask. So in an interview, employers are only allowed to ask questions that relate to your ability to do the job. Some questions are illegal. If an employer asks you an illegal question, you have 3 choices. You may answer it if you feel comfortable. Sometimes you may get the impression that the employer and you are hitting it off and you're just having a conversation. And in the conversation, they say, oh, do you have kids or are you married? Maybe that's something you're comfortable in answering and you're okay to do that. Answer the legal version of the question, what you think they are trying to get at. So maybe they've asked what your religious beliefs are. What they want to know is, are you going to be able to work the hours that they need, or are there going to be times that you need to go to that you're not going to be able to work because you have certain obligations to your religion? And you may just say to them, I'm able to work the hours that you require of me. And lastly, you can politely decline to answer the question. If you feel like, well, if I don't answer this question, I'm not going to get hired, that's okay, because you want to think about the company that you are going to be working for. So if they feel that it's okay to ask illegal questions, you may want to think about not working for a company that thinks that that's okay. Okay, so here are some other illegal questions. What religious holidays do you practice? Again, like I said, They can ask if you're available to work on Sundays, but they don't need to know what religious holidays you practice. Do you have children? If an employer wants to find out how committed you are to the job, they should ask questions about what hours you can work. Sometimes an employer will feel like if you have a family, that your first priority is not going to be work, that it's going to be your children. And that's not fair in an interview. What country are you from? They can ask, so they can't ask what country you're from, but they can ask if you are legally authorized to work in Canada. They are not allowed to ask if English is your first language, but employers can ask what other languages you can read, speak, or write fluently. They are not allowed to ask if you have ever been arrested. The way to answer that question, the way to ask that question properly is to say, have you ever been convicted of a crime for which a pardon has not been granted? Just because you've been arrested does not mean that you are charged or that you have a criminal record. They cannot ask if you are married. It's illegal because it reveals your sexual status, and it can also reveal your sexual orientation. Making a strong exit. So now it's your turn to ask questions. You want to make sure that you have 4 to 5 questions prepared to ask the employer about the job and or the company. So ask questions that show your interest in the job and company. And it's okay to bring your written questions with you. So example of some questions you may want to ask would be, can you tell me what a typical day would look like in my role? What are the top qualities that you're looking for in this candidate? Why do you like to work at this job? Where do you see this position in a year, 2 years, 3 years? And then there's more common questions like, what is the dress code? When will I find out if I got the job? Will I find out either way? Okay, so very important to bring questions with you. Again, it's another little point that shows your interest in the job. You want to make a lasting impression. So shaking hands, thanking the employer for interviewing you, and ask for a business card. And you want to ask for a business card for each person who interviewed you, if there's more than one. And the reason that you do this is because moving forward, you want to send a follow-up email thanking them. Okay, it doesn't have to be long, just something that says, you know, thank you for interviewing me. I'm very interested in the position. I found this point that you told me to be very interesting. And it also gives you a chance that, you know, on your way home, if you thought, oh no, I forgot to tell them A, B, or C, in this email, this thank you email, it gives you a chance to tell them that, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that, and then you can let them know. Only 30% of people will send a thank you email. And what it does is it puts you in the forefront of their brain when they're making their decision. You want to make sure that you continue job searching. This could be your dream job, and that's great, but you also run the chance of not getting the job, and you don't want to miss out on other jobs that may be suitable for you because you're not job searching. So please continue to job search while you're in the interview phase of your job search. Go to mock interviews. People at the YMCA, the job skills counselors, do perform mock interviews where we will have a look at the company you're wanting to work for, we'll make up questions, we'll interview you, and we'll give you feedback on that, okay? And choose the right attitude. Set a personal goal for each interview that is unrelated to the job. This way, you can still feel successful regardless of what the outcome is. So for example, maybe 2 interviews ago, you really fumbled on the question, tell me about yourself, and it didn't go well, and you were beating yourself up for it. Now your goal in this interview is to nail that question and answer it really well. And if you do, then you feel like you've been successful. So moving forward, this is a sample thank you letter. This is very long, and it doesn't need to be this long. What I would suggest is in the first paragraph, stating that when your interview was, the position, mention a thing or two that you thought was interesting or that maybe you, the employer, discussed. In paragraph 2, you want to again state your interest in the job, the qualifications you have, and why you would be a good match. And at the end, thank them and let them know that you're appreciative of the interview and that you look forward to hearing from them. Okay, you want to do this thank you letter within 24 hours of the interview. Don't wait any longer than that. Again, it puts you back in the forefront of the interviewer's mind. So that's all I have for ACE the Interview. I hope it was able to give you some insight into how to conduct an interview, and also ways that you can, little tips that you can do better in the interview process. And I thank you for having me today.
Hello, thank you so much again for joining us for this live webinar on ACE the Interview. We are now going to move into the question and answer period. But before we do that, I would just like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and you can revisit the information once it's been uploaded on our platform, and that's going to be within 48 hours after we've concluded. So let's kick off the questions. Melissa, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent. So first question, you did a wonderful job telling us about things we should do as interviewees. Is there any red flags from an interviewer we should be aware of?
The biggest red flag would be if the interviewer is A, asking illegal questions. That's a big red flag. And B, if the employer is hesitant to answer any questions in regards to safety or any kind of safety equipment that they should be providing. If they don't want to answer that, then I would think that is a red flag as well.
So if I saw that the company is hiring for multiple positions that I might qualify for, how would I express interest in the other positions in the interview?
What I would do prior to the interview is apply to all of those positions. And then in the interview, sometimes an employer will ask you if there's anything that you'd like to say prior to the interview starting or at the end. And in that aspect, you could let him know that you have applied to other positions. However, it is important to focus on one job. You want the employer to realize that you are the right candidate for that job and not that you just want to do any job within that company.
How many rounds of interviews are done before an offer is made?
That is different in every interview. And it depends on the company and the position and their time frame. Sometimes there can be one interview, oftentimes there's two, sometimes there can be three. It also depends on the type of job you're applying to. For example, if you're applying to be a police officer, you're going to go through a much longer screening and interview process than you would for an administrative assistant at a company. So it really depends on, like I said, the job, the company, their time frame. But you can ask that when you get the first call for an interview, you can say, will there be more than one interview?
Is it appropriate to negotiate a salary, negotiate the salary after an offer from the company has been given?
Yes, 100%. You don't want to bring up salary or negotiating salary in an interview, especially in a first interview. However, in a second interview or when the employer brings it up or when you get the offer is perfectly okay.
Yes. How can you recommend the best way not to answer questions about my age, religion, whether or not I have children? Should I be suspicious if they cross the boundary? So let's just say you do give an answer and they keep pushing for it.
The best way is to answer the question that they're really getting at. So as I mentioned in the interview, in the actual interview workshop, if they say, do you have kids? Chances are they're trying to get at, are you going to put the job first? So again, saying, I'm available for the hours that you need me for. What is your religion? You could also say, you know, does my religion have something to do with the position that I'll be doing? Why do you need to know that? Or you could say, I'm available to work Sundays. Maybe they're trying to see if you can't work Sundays, things like that.
Well, a lot of our clients are newcomers and they don't know much about salary range, do you have any tips on how they would find that information, or just so that they're not, get accepting a very low?
Right. So the first thing you need to know is that minimum wage in Canada is $14 an hour. Legally, you are not allowed to be paid under $14 an hour. So that's very important to know. Secondly, if you are wanting to research salary, you can Google that. So again, let's say you're applying for administrative assistant role, you can Google what salary in Ontario is for an administrative assistant. That way you have a range and you have kind of a guide to help you along the way when negotiating your salary with your employer.
And just a follow up on that, how much higher do you recommend we negotiate when offered a certain salary?
So that will all depend on the individual, the candidate's skills, experience, knowledge. That would be different for everybody.
Yeah. So if an interview asks if you can work on weekends and I don't want to work on weekends, should I say this up front, or play it by ear and, if the situation comes up?
Yeah, I would question it a little bit more. So, I would, they want to know how committed you are to the job, and you want to show them that you are committed and that you're really interested in this job. So I would answer that by saying, I'm very excited about this opportunity. I want to work for your company and I will give it all 100%. However, I do have commitments outside of work, and I'm wondering how often I would have to work on the weekends. That way you get the whole picture and you're able to make an informed decision, because maybe it's only one Saturday a month, or maybe it's only one weekend a month. So you might be able to work that into your life. But if it's every weekend or every Saturday, then maybe that's something that you don't want to consider.
Yes.
You are also allowed to ask these questions. As I mentioned, the interview is not just for the interview to learn about you, but it's for you to learn about the job and to make sure it's going to fit your lifestyle.
Exactly. So can you give a little bit of insight about volunteering and how, if at all, employers recognize volunteering when looking at the resume and then in the interview, how important that is?
Yeah, it's very important. Volunteering is no different than, sorry, I shouldn't say it's no different. You do the same job that everybody else in the office or the place is doing, you're just not getting paid. So you are getting the exact same experience as someone else. At the YMCA, in our employment office, we have volunteers, so many volunteers that come in on a daily basis and do all of the things that we need help with. And without them, our jobs would be a lot tougher. So as a person who has interviewed and hired in the past, of course I consider volunteer work experience. It doesn't matter if you're paid or not. It's important. And it's a way to get your foot in the door as well. They'll know you and you're trained in the position, and why not hire somebody who's already trained in doing the job than somebody who's not been in the company, hasn't done the job, is not getting along with the team like the volunteer already is.
So do you know if there's any consideration if someone lives too far from the workplace, if they would be considered for the job, or if they would be discriminated against in any way?
Right. So I would say yes, it is taken into consideration. I don't know that if the person was the exact fit that they wanted, but they live far away, that they wouldn't offer them the job. However, what I suggest to avoid that is, if you are applying to a job that's far away from your home, do not put your address on it. You can put your phone number and your email address, but they don't need to know your address at that time. But if you are applying to a job that is close to where you live, then I would definitely put your address on it.
Exactly. So I have a relevant volunteering experience in my home country. Do you know, well, from experience, do you know if this is helpful, or should our clients focus on getting the volunteering experience from Canada?
Well, I think that it would depend on the job, right? Because standards and things are different from country to country.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to think about. I would try to get some Canadian experience for sure. A hindrance or a weakness is that people unfortunately don't have Canadian experience. So as much Canadian experience as you can get, for example, volunteering is important.
Exactly. And so this one is another one about salary. I think the question is, I'm just trying to decipher it as I read it.
Okay.
So if I have work experience in Canada and have X salary, how much hike percentage should I ask? Like in my country, salary hike for job switch ranges from 20 to 40%. So I think the question is, if you're changing positions, is there a percentage that you should ask for?
So again, sometimes in a company, for example, the Y, they have set ranges of salary, and oftentimes it can't be negotiated. So that is the question that you would have to ask the individual employer in regards to how their salary works. Because you could be making a lateral move, which means that you're moving to a position that there is no increase in wage. Or if you are getting a promotion, so meaning that you're moving to a higher position, again, they may already have a salary set that you can't negotiate. But if you are able to negotiate it, I can't really answer that question because the negotiation has to happen between you and the employer. I don't know to say to you, ask for 10% more, or ask for 5% more. I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a few other questions surrounding that. There isn't really a set percentage that you should ask for. I think you just have to kind of like do your research and also know your worth, and kind of find a middle ground between those two.
Exactly.
Let's see the time. Okay, we have time for about one more question. Do you know if there are any online volunteering options available during COVID-19? Is this something that's been put on hold until things get resolved or get better?
So I'm only able to answer for the YMCA of Greater Toronto, and we are not taking any volunteers at this time. Unfortunately, I can't answer for any other company. If I was to guess, I would say no. Places are not taking on volunteers at this time. Unfortunately, people are being laid off and or working from home, and so they're not taking on any volunteers. And not only is the Y not taking any volunteers, we're currently not hiring, so it's put a bit of a stop on things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, things have also been reduced, such as workload. So in the normal situation, we would have extra work that volunteers would do, but at this time, unfortunately, it's not the case. So I know, Melissa, you have to go now, so we can conclude the webinar. Thank you so much again for presenting the information. It's very valuable for our clients, and will be helpful for future clients as well. So just to conclude, lastly, actually, if you would like to say any last words, you can do so now.
Just hope everybody gained some valuable information from the workshop, and I hope I was able to answer some of those questions.
Great, thank you. So Please, once we exit out of the webinar, do fill out the feedback form, and we will be emailing you with another feedback form from Melissa, and it will be very helpful if you fill that out, because it will help us improve the content and delivery of the next webinar. All right, thank you so much. Goodbye, Melissa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.